So I want to talk about something that most people have no idea exists, and we are talking about needles, but not in the way you're probably thinking. If you've ever dealt with chronic pain or stubborn injury that just won't go away, or if you're someone who trains and you want to perform better and recover faster, this one's for you. Here's the thing that nobody really talks about when it comes to pain and injuries. Every single muscle strain, every joint issue, every I threw my back out picking up a sock off the floor moment, unless it's actual physical trauma, it starts the same way, and it's muscle imbalances. That's it. That's the root of almost everything. And what happens is when one muscle is too tight or weak or not firing right, another muscle has to pick up the slack, and that muscle that's overworking, it gets strained, it gets tight, it starts pulling on the joint that it's attached to, and now the joint is doing the work of a muscle, which is not what joints are designed for. And that is when things start breaking down, muscle strain, and when they're not doing their job stabilizing the joint anymore, the ligaments have to pick up the slack, and ligaments are meant to be the last line of defense, not the primary stabilizer. Put them under that kind of repeated stress, and that's how sprains happen. That tightness turns into tendinitis, and that annoying shoulder becomes a real problem. And this happens all the time. And people are out there just treating pain and not the cause of it. And that is where needling comes in. And there are 3 types, and they're not the same thing. So let's break it all down. The first one is acupuncture. Most people either swear by it or they think it's a little out there. I get it. For a long time, Western medical world kind of rolled its eyes at it too, because the traditional explanation is rooted in ancient Chinese philosophy, which is very poetic, and concepts that are hard to measure in a lab. But here's what actually got my attention when you look at what needle physically does when it goes into the body. It's pretty remarkable. When that needle goes into the tissue, your body responds immediately. It releases endorphins, which are your body's natural painkillers. It fires up your nervous system's own built-in pain suppression, and the blood flow increases to that area. Also, the fascia, which is that connective tissue wrapped around everything, actually responds to mechanical stimulus and starts to release. And here's the part that honestly blew my mind. In the 1940s, Western researchers started mapping out these spots in the body called trigger points. This is what you call those knots that you feel. Those are the tender, hyper-irritable spots in the muscle. And when they compare their maps to the acupuncture points that Chinese practitioners have been using for over 2,000 years, they matched up like to a startling degree. 2 completely different systems, completely different times, completely different parts of the world, and same spots. That is really hard to dismiss. So acupuncture, Western explanation, is essentially using a needle to trigger body's own healing response at very specific, very intentional locations, and it works on broad, full body level, and it's been doing so for a very long time. Now, dry needling. This is the Western medicine version, and this is where it gets a little more targeted. So back in the 1940s, same era, there's this physician named Dr. Travell, and she becomes pretty famous for a couple of reasons. Number 1, she was JFK's personal doctor, and number 2, this is the relevant part. She was doing groundbreaking research on muscle pain. She figured out that muscles develop these knotted, locked up spots, which once again, we're calling and feeling as knots, and she called them myofascial trigger points. And they cause pain, they refer pain to other areas of the body, they limit movement, and she started injecting them, trying different things, saline, analgesics, you name it. But what happened is she noticed something, and it didn't really matter what she was injecting. The relief actually came from the needle going in. So the physical act of hitting that trigger point was what caused the muscle to release. So dry needling, needle, no medication, just the mechanical stimulus of the needle hitting that knotted tissue, causing what's called a local twitch response. The muscle fires and releases, and that circulation comes back. The knot loosens, the pain goes down. It works. It's widely used by physical therapists, sports medicine practitioners, acupuncturists, obviously, and I've seen it work on people who've been dealing with the same issue for years. But But this is important. What dry needling is doing is treating the symptom. It is finding the muscle that already broke down and is too tight and releasing it, which is great. But it's not going all the way upstream to ask why that muscle broke down in the first place or how to reset the whole system. That is where the third one comes in, third needling. And this is the one I really wanted to talk about because this is the one that most people, even most people in the health and fitness world, have never heard of. And it genuinely changes the conversation about pain and performance. And what I'm talking about here is motor point acupuncture and why it's so amazing. Here's what you need to understand. Every muscle in the body has a motor point. It's a very specific location where the motor nerve actually enters the muscle belly. And that's pretty much your control panel. That's where the signal from your brain comes in and tells the muscle what to do. Contract, relax, how hard, how long. Now, when a muscle has been chronically overworked or stuck in a shortened, tight position or just not firing right because of imbalance being too weak, that nerve-muscle communication gets dysregulated. The muscle isn't just tight, it's neurologically stuck and it's getting the wrong signal or a disrupted signal and it doesn't know how to get back to its normal resting state. So a trigger point tells you where it hurts and a motor point lets you reset the signal entirely. When you needle the motor point, the exact spot where the nerve meets the muscle, you reset the resting tone of that muscle. You restore the communication between the nervous system and the muscle, and when the muscle can finally go back to its proper length, proper activation pattern, it stops overloading the joint. It stops causing the compensation patterns in the neighboring muscles, and the whole chain starts to correct itself. That's the difference. Dry needling silences the alarm just by purely releasing tight knots. Motor point therapy fixes the wiring. This isn't fringe. Dr. Changan, Matt Callison, Dr. Anthony Lombardi, these are serious practitioners who have spent their careers refining this, working with professional athletes at the highest levels. So real quick, here's how I think about the difference between the three, and I want you to remember this part. Acupuncture improves circulation and it gets blood moving. It activates your body's own healing response and it helps the whole system function better. That is its superpower. Now, with dry needling, it releases tight knots. If you've got a muscle that's locked up and causing pain, dry needling goes right in, hits that trigger point and gets it to let go. Very effective for what it does. Now, motor point therapy, it fixes the reason why you're actually getting those tight knots in the first place. It resets the muscle at the neurological level. It restores the signal. It restores the proper length and function, which means better performance, less pain, less risk of injury, and you're actually treating the root cause instead of chasing symptoms. That's the one that changes the game, and that's the one that most people have never heard of. Look, I'm not saying needles are for everyone. I know some people hear the word needles and they're out, but if you've been dealing with something that just won't go away, this might be the one treatment that might actually be worth your time.